I first heard of ArcheAge Unchained when I was in the Netherlands with Pian, and at the time I was extremely frustrated with BDO, and was in a time of change of my life. I love the idea of an Asian MMORPG designed around not being pay to win. Back in the days, I was one of those fanboys trying to defend BDO, saying that it wasn't pay to win because of this and because of that, but frankly, after they introduced cron melting to EU and NA, I kinda lost hopes like many others. So Unchained for me wasn't only an opportunity to play a game that was free of the cancer that is pay to win, but also a way for me to support that kind of business model here in the West. And I think you have to be the difference you want to see in the world, and as cheesy as that may sound, I felt like supporting Unchained meant supporting a better monetization for MMORPGs in the West. Well, the release date got pushed further and further, and I personally was very happy with it, since I felt that at the time they were rushing things, and the release was only 1 month after WoW Classic. I was getting more and more hyped with each stream. For me, the level of transparency between the publisher and the community was something that I've never seen before, especially with BDO at the time. Now, I had never played ArcheAge before, so I had almost no idea of what I was getting into. But many of my BDO friends did, and they were telling me the same thing. The game was the best MMO they've ever played, but it got ruined by pay to win. People were hyping the game left and right, and I wanted to finally feel like I was a player in a game instead of just a fat wallet ready to be milked. I consider myself a hardcore player. I don't get satisfaction from playing games casually, so the first thing I did was figuring out if I could join some top guild from the get-go. Two of my very good friends, Octobeast and Slim, were in the same guild in ArcheAge, Reborn on Alexander. And since I've been in a guild on Black Desert with these two before, I knew that that was the guild that I had to join. This was gonna be a completely new experience for me. I've played BDO for 3 years at the time, and I've built my stream around helping players learn the game with my experience. So this time I was a complete noob with absolute zero knowledge on what I was doing. So not only I had to learn the game from zero, but also I would need to learn how to stream a game, where this time I was a beginner. I took this as a challenge, and I honestly was quite excited. I spent days watching guides and learning the game in the test server and getting to know the community, and at the start everything was amazing. I was having a good time and it felt like a nice fresh experience, since ArcheAge is more of a traditional sandbox, while in BDO many things are locked because of game design. So the game comes out. I managed to get into Reborn, and I start the leveling experience. I do the mistake of logging in 2 seconds after the game opens, so instead of getting in right away, I have a 2000 people queue. Now, I'm not gonna be that guy that cries about queues in a fresh start server. I knew that there were gonna be queues, and while of course I didn't like them, I don't think it is fair to complain about them. Now, one thing I will complain about is the lack of grace period in the queues, meaning that if you crashed in the game, or in queue, or your queue froze, you would not be able to get back in. And during peak time, you would have to wait 6 or more hours. Now that really sucked. That first 2 days I streamed the game, I crashed 2 hours into the stream both times. And the queues were so long that it just meant that I had to close the stream or play another game. There was no alternative. This made me feel like I couldn't stream the game for the first few weeks, because it was very unstable. There were quite a lot of performance issues that it made it crash randomly, even if you did all the band-aid fixes provided by the community. This was the first time I started to have some doubts about the game, and my little dream was starting to crumble. The first week was kind of a mess. People found a way to abuse the Arc Pass and made a fuckload of gold with it. And you know what? I didn't care. When I pick a game, I commit to it. And I knew these kind of things mean nothing in the long run. I would even say that months and months matter very little if you play the game for years, right? As I said earlier, I knew very little about the game, but I was determined to be as competitive as I could. So obviously, for the first week, I did as many world bosses as I could, and I hated it. Now I know what you're gonna say, that I'm an idiot, that's why I quit. That's a marathon, it's not a sprint, just do the things that you like in the game. Well, I like to be competitive and not drag my guild down, so I bit the bullet and hoped things would change soon. Not too long after, they removed the Arc Pass because it was too exploitable and flawed, which is very worrying, considering it was supposed to be the way they were gonna monetize the game and get the revenue. Alright, so the Arc Pass is out. Now what? What do I do in the game now? Well, this is where I found about Daily Age. Dailies everywhere. Do you want to keep up? Well, you need to do a fuckload of dailies. Hiram dailies, Honor dailies, Arena dailies, Family dailies, Guild, you get the idea. Hear me out. I was no-lifing this game, literally playing all day, and I felt like I didn't have enough time to do all the dailies. I started to feel suffocated by all this daily mandatory stuff, which most of it you had to do at 1 AM in the morning with a reset raid. Because if you skip the reset raid, holy Jesus, good luck finding a pug raid in the middle of the day that was half organized and didn't waste all of your entire evening. And please don't be a Timmy in the comments saying that you didn't have to do the dailies. If you wanted to progress, that was the only thing to do. And I played the game to be in a top guild, not casually. The reason I was feeling anxious was because of me at the end of the day. I decided to play this game in catch-up mode. I decided to join one of the strongest guilds straight away. I was the one that wanted to be competitive, because that's what I like, right? Well, this is why I quit. First of all, the biggest reason is by far the need of 3 accounts to play the game. I was sold this dream by Gamigo and by other people that ArcheAge wasn't a pay-to-win game, and it was finally gonna be the exception. Well, that was a lie. If you don't have 3 accounts where you constantly burn labor on, then you're gonna fall behind a lot. This is pay-to-win. I'm sorry, that is just pay-to-win. Not only someone that buys the game 3 times is gonna progress faster, but if you have multiple virtual machines or PCs running at the same time to do coin purse farming, that would make it impossible for someone with just 1 copy of the game to catch up. As I said, I felt lied to. Other reasons are the content of the game itself. I loved the 10v10 arena, I was spamming it all day long, and honestly I had a blast with it, but sadly it's not the main attraction of the game. Most people did their 5 entries for the reward and then stopped there, and very few people took it seriously. This demotivated me quite a bit. I felt like the content that I like to do the most was just something on the side that wasn't a real focus for the majority of the competitive player base. Another thing was the actual group PvP. I love group PvP, but I'm more of a small scale guy, and the majority of the fights that I had were blob versus blob, and it just wasn't for me. I remember the last few days I actually played the game, and I felt so stressed and anxious when I was in game, and I just couldn't wait to close it and just go do something else. When I finally decided that I was gonna quit, I felt like a weight was lifted from my shoulders. I played for around 1 month, I quit, and I went back to BDO with a tail behind my legs. But boy did I dodge a bullet there. Black Desert now is in consistent growth. Gamigo and ArcheAge proved to be one of the biggest flops and disappointment in the MMO world in a long time. There are so many shady events that happened around this time. The VP and lead project manager, Crollan, who was insanely active on Twitter and on the streams, completely disappeared from the face of the earth after the game was released. I think this Gamigo employee review really sums up the company and explains a lot about what happened to the game. I've been working at Gamigo full-time for more than a year. Pros: nobody will bother you for not doing your job. You can be late every day and take 20 smoke breaks a day. Easy to get a job there, since nobody wants to work there anymore. Just as good as unemployment. You have the chance to get promoted or hired to a random position you don't know anything about. Cons: poor wages and environment overall. There is nobody to teach anything to anyone. Get blamed for going the extra mile. Free-to-play economy based on gambling and loot boxes. With the current drama surrounding these boxes, and since the area isn't able to learn, future will be difficult. Incompetent managers with less experience than the subordinates. All computers, cheap tools. Dogs barking and running around the office, eating trash, damaging equipment. The office smells like a stable. Advice to management: get rid of incompetent employees. Get rid of the amateur feeling. Hire some true experts with the experience from other game studios. Reward your top performers so they don't leave after a year. Get rid of managers flirting with our customers' moderators. They promise to keep every DLC and expansion free, and of course the first one that comes out is behind a paywall. Gamigo promised zero tolerance policy on gold selling and account trading, but ended up doing almost nothing about it. Sadly, the list goes on and on. So to wrap this up, I just wanted to tell my story. ArcheAge is not a bad game, but Unchained is just not a good one. I don't know how many of you actually made it to the end. If you made it to the end, I'm proud of you. Did a good job. Kisses.